In February 2011, Billy Hayes was re-elected as General Secretary of the CWU. But what challenges will the union face in his next term? Congratulations, Billy, on being re-elected.
Thank you.
I want to take you back to when you first became General Secretary. What did this union look like?
Well, there was a lot of changes we had to make in terms of the union's political position. We're much more firmly in the mainstream, I suppose, in terms of the debates that have taken place, much more engaged with the Labour Party and the TUC. Of course, there was more members then. That's one of the problems that we're going to have to deal with in the future. And it's a very different union to what it is now.
It's interesting, you're a very popular leader. You've been re-elected unopposed, yet the membership is declining. So not a reflection on you, but a reflection on what's happening in this country, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, some of it's what's called structural decline. That's, jobs going because of modernisation, more machinery being introduced in the postal service, changes in the telecommunications market. There's things that we can't do a lot about, but there's a lot we can do about, and that's making sure that we have maximum number of people in trade union in our union in the recognised sectors, and we've got to see what support we can give to our local representatives. We've got to make changes up here in the headquarters. We've got to look at what's working and what's not working. Because
there's still so many things that you're fighting for on behalf of your members, aren't there? Do you think that the younger people who are coming into companies and working now are thinking, what does this union actually do, and do I need them to represent me? What would you say to them?
Well, I think we have to look at what the union's achieved, whether that's in pay and conditions, defending pensions, fighting for wider social issues such as the Robin Hood tax, which we've heard a lot about, connecting with them not just in the workplace but in the wider world, because we don't define ourselves simply by where we spend 8 hours of our day or our working day. We're much more than that. Everyone's much more than that. And we do have a problem in this country. There's 6.8 million people in trade unions, but there's 20 million people who aren't in a trade union and don't know the value of trade unions. And trade unionism is not taught in schools as it was many years ago. So it's speaking to them in their language and using some of the modern techniques to communicate.
I was going to say, how do you turn that around? How do you change that?
Well, I think the first thing in any leadership is to listen to people and then act on what you think is important and what's coming out of the feedback that you're getting. So looking at issues that are relevant to young people today, but looking at issues that are relevant to women, our ethnic minority members, disabled members, looking at what matters to people in work. And it is obviously about paying conditions, but sometimes it's much more than that, because we're more than just bread and butter issues. And I think the values of what trade unionism are still relevant, because injustice still is there, and trade unions tackle is about social justice.
Let's look at the workplace and look at some of the fights you've taken on, some of the fights that are still ongoing. What would you sort of list as the big issues?
Well, I think obviously paying conditions is a big issue for people, and obviously linked to that is pensions. That's obviously a major issue, but the privatisation of Royal Mail is a big issue for the whole of the union. The development of superfast broadband, which was promoted by the union back in 2001, and everybody's onto it now. It's absolutely crucial for our economy. But the theme run through both the privatisation of Royal Mail and telecommunications is about universal access. So if you live in inner city London, you want good broadband access and you want a good postal service. If you live in, on the borders of Loch Ness, you want superfast broadband and you want a good postal service, because they complement each other. So that's the sort of the key, if you like, that runs through all our union work.
Now, since I last spoke to you, we've had a change of government, a coalition government. How do you feel your relationship with this new government is?
Well, the first thing is the people of Britain didn't vote for them, I suppose, but they are the government. They are a coalition government, and we have to respect the coalition as the government of Britain. 22% of our members voted Lib Dem, 20% of our members voted Conservatives, and the CWU is not a political party, so we have to make representation of the government.
Having that breakdown is very useful, isn't it, knowing which way your members voted?
Yeah, absolutely. 48% of our members voted Labour at the last elections, and the majority of people still continue to vote for the Labour Party, but we're not a political party. So, just before Christmas on the 20th of December, I, together with other people in the TUC, met David Cameron, And the fact is, only in this country would it seem strange that the trade unions meet, the Tory-led coalition. So, we have to be very clear. Obviously, we've got a political position as a union, but we exist to look after our people in the workplace and as them as total human beings, as it were. And I don't think of myself as I'm there as some kind of representative of the Labour Party, which I'm clearly not. I represent every single person who pays into the CWU, and whoever's in government. I have no problem meeting David Cameron. I have no problem in Scotland meeting Alex Salmond, or dealing with the leader of the Welsh Assembly, or for that matter, meeting the political parties in Northern Ireland. We're there to do a job. We're here to do a job on behalf of our people, and that's what they pay their money for.
When it comes to the Labour Party, you backed Ed Balls in the latest leadership contest. Your man didn't win, but you have met with the man who did. How do you get on with Ed Miliband?
It's good. We get on. He's pretty straightforward, very different, and there's a generational change. He's younger than me for starters, he's very, very bright and very able. He's got a job of work. He's leader of the opposition. He's got a big job of work to do. But I think he's operating in a very collegiate way, involving everybody and taking the party forward. So he's got this union's total support. And
do you think there's sympathy for the issue? We were talking about earlier on about the fact that unions are in decline in terms of their membership. Is there some support you can get from the Labour Party in terms of pushing out that encouraging message to people, join your union wherever you work?
Yeah, and I don't think it's just a problem for trade unions. It's a problem for social activity per se. In the 1950s, 1 in 8 people were involved in some kind of organisation. That's declined phenomenally. But I think we're starting to see people getting a bit tired of the me culture. David Cameron talks about the big society. I mean, we see that as a cover to break down the institutions that have given help to people over the years, that are the welfare state. So he could do more to encourage activity for trade unions. And it's only in this country where being in a trade union is seen as some kind of social pariah. Mrs. Thatcher once famously said, the enemy within. But if you're in Sweden, for example, where 70% of people in trade unions, it's seen as just part of the furniture. And also, of course, the professions are a good example, I suppose. I mean, people don't think of the BMA, the British Medical Council, as a trade union, but it is. People don't think of the Law Society being a trade union, but it is, and a very effective one in terms of what they do. So we need to look at new ways. And we need to, as I say, listen to people more, analyse people more, and recognise that, we do live in a different world.
We've talked about the coalition government. Let's look at their cuts agenda, a challenge not just for you and the CWU, but all trade unions. I mean, that looks pretty bleak, doesn't it, the future that they would like to impose?
Yeah, and it is pretty bleak, whether it's the libraries, closure of libraries, whether it's privatisation of Royal Mail, a reorganisation of NHS. We're seeing lots of cuts taking place across the wider economy, and it affects CW people, and of course it affects students.
Yes, they've found their voice, haven't they? I mean, that's been, quite an amazing reaction in the last few months to see that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a bit like, people say, what's the matter with kids today? And here we are seeing the students taking the lead, as it were. So there's been a tremendous resurgence of political activity, which is welcome in itself in terms of young people, and they've been an inspiration to the trade union movement.
I'm sure that some of that energy then you'd like to see happen on the 26th of March when this enormous demonstration is happening for all trade unions. What kind of turnout would you like to see for that?
Well, I think it's going to be massive. Some people are talking about 500,000 at a minimum. And it's not just going to be people who are in trade unions, it's going to be people who are feeling the impact of the Tory-led coalition's cuts. And it's going to be, it's going to be a family day. It's going to be well stewarded. There's going to be people who are in work, people who are out of work. So it's going to be a massive demonstration. And as we've already seen in Egypt, people say, "Oh, what difference will it make?" Well, you tell that to Mubarak. He knows what the difference a demonstration makes. Or you tell that to the leaders of Yemen or Tunisia. It matters being out on the 26th of March, and that's what we're saying to all CWU people. Be there or be square.
Your term of office ends in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
You must have looked at the future with your team around you. Where do you think this union will be in 5 years' time?
Well, we've done a document called Mapping the Future, and it's a bit like them TV programs that say to you, if you continue in this lifestyle, this is what you're going to look like in 5 years' time. You know, these are the trends. So, you know, membership declining, problems of the breakup of the industries. You know, there's a lot more smaller workplaces, and that's going to be start to move across into the Royal Mail side or the postal sector side. But the truth is, you know, it's within our grasp in terms of changing the union round. And of course, also we need to take on board that the demographics have changed, that there's more women in the workplace, and we still haven't got enough women in senior positions at national level and at local level. There's more ethnic minorities involved in the workplace. We need to take that on board. So a much more diverse union we need. Obviously, we want to grow the membership. There's opportunities in some of the newer companies, you know, Santander being a case in point. And we want to go into new postal companies. You know, there's still a lot of people who aren't in trade unions, who need trade unionism. And so we want to expand the influence and the growth of the union.
You said you were optimistic. Are you optimistic that you can turn that picture around?
Well, all my experience has shown to me that, you know, you can either act or be acted upon. We act. You know, we're not spectators in any of this. We're participants. We're players, and what we do matters. You know, it's like the thing about, you know, this can be you in 5 years' time. What we're saying to our activists, you know, get the gym.
Billy, thank you.
Emma, thank you.
In February 2011, Billy Hayes was re-elected as General Secretary of the CWU. But what challenges will the union face in his next term?